This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hi, and welcome back to Pod Strangely Warmed. I'm Daniel Hawkins, coming to you from General Conference. We are still in Charlotte, North Carolina for day 732 of the General Conference. In all actuality, this is the Thursday before conference ends on Friday, and we are coming to you to bring you a recap. But before we do, I want to give thanks for just a minute for the folks from Church and Society who allowed us to inhabit their space to record our podcast here today. It's been a monumental 2 weeks in the life of the church called United Methodist, and to help me recap today, I'm so thankful and excited to have back on the podcast friends of the podcast and DSs who control my life, Philip Rhodes and Edlen Cowley. We are so thankful that you are here with us on Pod Strangely Warmed today. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Y'all are both in the midst of thawing out after spending time on the plenary floor.
So cold.
It is so cold in there, and yet so warm on the observer side. It is a fascinating deal. The air conditioning is strong on the side of the voting delegates. As we get started today, when y'all were last on the podcast, we kind of left the community with a question. We'd mentioned that there were 3 R's for kind of big legislative concerns coming into this general conference: worldwide regionalization, removal of the harmful language, and passing of the revised social principles. And I asked y'all to help us frame that in a way to say, are we playing baseball or are we shooting free throws, right? And what I heard you guys say to me was that at the end of the day, this is more like baseball than shooting free throws. Where are we on our baseball game coming out of General Conference? How many of those big legislative priorities got addressed and came through in a way that leads to life, vitality, possibility, and freedom in our annual conferences?
Yeah. So what's neat is all 3, unbelievably, have passed. The regionalization, the removal of the restrictive language, and the revising of social principles. And I almost would add a 4th in that paragraph 2553 is done away with. So, I mean, we were talking about what might happen here. To have those 3 and that 4, when we talk about baseball, I mean, I don't know if that's 4 home runs or it's
hitting for the cycle.
Yeah,
or
it's unbelievable.
Well, and I think it'd be remiss to. I mean, also sacramental authority for deacons.
Yes.
There's 5. I mean, this is a brand new day in the United Methodist Church.
And I know we didn't address it ahead of time, but the removal of 2553 and the addition of sacramental authority for the deacons is a big deal for our church, for its future. If you don't speak in DS code, can y'all tell us what 2553 is and why deleting it matters for the future of the church?
Yeah, I mean, 2553 was the paragraph that had it had a sunset clause of December 31st, 2023, but that's a paragraph that was used for churches to disaffiliate and to take their property with them. So that sunsetted as we all know on December 31st of last year, but there were some petitions that would allow that to be a permanent part of our book of discipline. That got summarily defeated, and as a district superintendent, I'm real happy about that because that was a tough paragraph. That was a tough season.
And what's also significant is there was another piece that passed that allows a path back for churches that did disaffiliate that may want to make the decision to come back. So, again, this has just been historic. So many impactful things have happened, but that's another unexpected thing that happened.
Well, I think the spirit of collegiality, too, in the place. This is, as we all know, this was our rookie kind of go at this. But we'd all heard the nightmare stories of General Conference, the fighting, the politicking. There's been minimal pieces of that, but it has not been overwhelmingly apparent.
Yeah. And I think what's significant here is for those of us who were jurisdictional and we were taking that jurisdictional trip for the first time, that didn't have the contention. It was like, well, is that what General Conference is going to be like? And so there was this like, let's see what this feels like on the first day. And it really has the same feel, a collegial feel, a family feel. Still, people are making their points, and that's what we do. Yeah. For those who want to say, well, now we've just gone totally progressive. Like, no, we have progressives in the church. We have centrists. We have conservatives. We all kind of live together in the same family. We still speak with our same voice, but we still are connected, and we can have unity without uniformity. That would be on the T-shirt from this time we've been together.
Wesley was
Yeah.
one who said, right, even if we may not think alike, may we love alike. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is the space that we are living in this season, right? There's freedom and contextual possibility, right? As we've talked about the 3 R's coming in: worldwide regionalization, the removal of historically harmful language for the LGBTQ plus community, and the revised social principles. How do each one of those affect our ability to do contextual ministry in the decades that come after this?
To start with regionalization, I think what's most significant about it, and this was what happened first, because the very first petition tied to worldwide regionalization, it needed to pass by 2/3. That happened it was Tuesday morning, and it was kind of I don't use the word bellwether a lot, but it was kind of a bellwether of what this whole time was going to be about. And so to see that it passed the margin that it passed with, and to feel kind of the elation but same kind of relaxing in the room, it was significant because there were 8 positions tied to worldwide regionalization. The other 7 needed to pass with a simple majority. That has happened. But that first one, it really kind of set a tone. So regionalization, when you look at it all together, all the pieces of it pass. Now ratification has to happen. So we won't know for another year to 18 months about what that ultimately will look like. But it was the first one that kind of set the tone.
Yeah, and I think the other 2 big R's, the revision and social principles around specifically defining what marriage is. We had some amendments, so it added man and a woman or 2 persons, and so that got a lot of support. And then the removal of the restrictive language on both for ordination and for marriage for LGBTQ plus folks, our siblings, was summarily adopted. And so I think what's really important coming out of that is that gives the churches the freedoms to be able to be contextual in their ministries. So if you're a more progressive church, you now have some freedoms that you didn't have prior to this. If you're a more traditional church, you have all the freedoms to be a traditional church. Right. So there's no mandates here, and I think that's the biggest thing that I'd want churches and pastors to know. There are no mandates for who pastors marry. There's no mandates for churches to have weddings. It's just freedom.
Well,
to be contextual.
One of the things that I really appreciated in the midst of the legislation was that lack of a mandate got codified. It wasn't just that we didn't say anything on it, right? It's that got built in. No one shall mandate either direction.
Yeah, and I tell you one thing that's also significant is when we talk about these votes and what happened, someone will say, well, y'all are going into a place we've never been before. We're going into this uncharted territory, and we're going into uncharted territory based on what's been for the past 52 years. But one of the presentations that Adam Hamilton made at the dinner I was at last week, and it's true, we're going back to what the discipline said prior to 1972. So for some who's like, we're going off and we're doing it, no, we're going back to what we were, how we were. That restrictive language was not there before 1972.
Yep.
Right.
So in a sense, we're going back, but as we're going back, we're going forward, which you kind of have to. It's kind of the church nerd in you to know what that really means, but that plays into it.
The method nerd. That's what I heard.
Was one
the
of
method nerd. It was a phrase.
One of the sermons we heard,
Yes.
that term.
Yes.
Well, and the church, if we think about its history, right, it has been its most vibrant, it's been its most vital when it's been clear on its vision, focused on its ministry, and not spending all of its time engaged in fighting at the worldwide level, right?
Yeah.
And when you name freedom, that's what I see the freedom and possibility to exist here, right? It's the freedom to focus on where God is inviting us to go and to do and to be as local churches. It's a freedom as an annual conference to be followers of Jesus, seeking after the loving, just, and free world God imagines for all people. It's a focus on what matters most, loving the human beings who God has placed in our path and loving them well.
I think the practical application of that means we may have some pastors who want to perform weddings, and they will.
Yeah.
And don't want to perform weddings, and they won't. Churches who want to host weddings in their buildings, and they can. Churches who don't want to host buildings, weddings in their buildings, and they don't have to. So to come back to Philip's point, it is a kind of a codification of the freedom. And so we'll see kind of what this shakes out. So there'll be churches where an associate may perform a wedding, but it won't happen on the church building. And that's how the context of the church is what really will drive that.
Well, in a worldwide church, that context matters. We are one of the things as a newbie delegate to General Conference, as we've worshipped in multiple languages, if we've debated with the 10 established languages of the General Conference. Like, live translation is happening in 10 languages of every word spoken into a microphone at General Conference. Think about that for a little bit. If that linguistic context is any indication, we are doing ministry in lots of different places, in lots of different ways, and having freedom to follow Jesus best, to meet and reach and love and serve the neighbors who are around you. That's a big deal, right? And that's kind of where we've pushed forward. As you guys have experienced this for the first time, right? We've hit the big 3 R's. And then we added sacramental authority for my deacons. Shout out, deacons. We're happy for you, incredibly excited. Continue to take that presence of Christ into the world, being that bridge between church and community, and now do that with sacramental authority. Woohoo. That's a wonderful and great thing. Forgive me for a second. As you guys have experienced the rest of General Conference for the first time, has there been something that kind of caught your attention or really made an impact on your spirit that somebody had told you about that you hadn't really ever experienced for yourself before, or maybe that just kind of caught you as a surprise?
I think, I didn't understand. So each of our delegations has core values. Yeah. And one of the Central Texas Conference delegation core values is to loosen rather than tighten. I didn't know what that meant, but now I know what that means. And I think what we've done at this General Conference is we've loosened rather than tightened. And that's meant a lot, just knowing that we've had that as a core value, and that's been part of the Central Texas Conference's core values for a number of years.
Right.
That actually came to life in this General Conference. It is still a really big ship with a tiny little rudder, but that rudder's moved, and now we get to live into this, right, and see what that means, and so, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say I think the worship has been really, really impactful. I mean, and realizing you're worshiping with people from all over the globe, and I think there's a choral piece about one Lord, one church, one hope, and this really comes to life here.
Yeah.
I don't know who did that. My choral people will be texting me about this, I imagine.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's this word connection, because when we talk about connection, we're district superintendents. So the connection, hey, that's the district. Or we think the connection is the conference. Or we're in a unique position of what it means in unification, conference, 3 conferences coming together. But now when I say the word connection, I'm going to think not just about Texas or Fort Worth or just the South Central jurisdiction. I'm like, okay, I have brothers and sisters in Europe and just all over the world. I mean, Africa, the Philippines. But not only to know that, but to see those persons walking around, to hear all those language spoken. Like you said, there's all this simultaneous translation going on. One of the things that I've enjoyed this week, like I said, I don't speak French, but it's been a blessing to hear my brothers and sisters from the continent of Africa who speak French, to hear that beautiful language coming out of their mouths. It's beautiful, but it is, again, it's a reminder, as you said earlier, the 10 languages that we see happening just right there, real time. It's just a reminder of how big the connection really is.
Yeah, and that's what you were saying. So oftentimes we think about the connection in terms of a district or a conference or a unifying conference with 3 different or a jurisdiction. This gives us a feel for a connection that's so much bigger than just what we normally think of, and I think that's been pretty powerful.
It's been beautiful. And I got to note, as we're all Texans here, some of us lifelong and some of us by adoption, one of the extra languages that we authorized here as a study commission to discern the need and work out the logistics of for future general conferences was to add Spanish to the list of the official languages of the general conference. And so as that multilingual part of our northern swath of Texas community becomes a more vivid part of the United Methodist Church locally, it's also becoming a more intentional, vivid part of the United Methodist Church worldwide. And so it's a meaningful thing and something worthy of our celebration. Last time you guys were on the podcast, I asked you to speak into the hearts and lives of our lay people and our clergy right? We know that most of the folks who listen to us or watch us on a week-by-week basis are the method nerds you mentioned a little bit earlier, right? Are really committed lay folks and clergy. Now that General Conference has happened, because by the time they hear this, we will be the Tuesday after General Conference, right? Everything, we will all be home and moving into life as we have normally experienced it in the aftermath of this. What would you say to the folks who've been watching from home, either literally live streaming things as they go along, or catching up on their social media feeds, or seeing headlines on CNN or the New York Times or other news organizations along the way? What would you say to our clergy and laity back home?
Well, what I would say, before we started talking, I was thinking about a way, what would be something to kind of wrap this up. And I thought about a statement that his name is Guy Johnson. You would not have heard of him. He's an author and a poet, and you may not be familiar with him, but you would be familiar with his mother. His mother's name, Maya Angelou. You've heard her.
Yes.
And what's interesting is he had the same exact field. He was an author and a poet. She was an author and a poet, and so many other things. He was interviewed one time, and they asked him, what was it like to grow up in the shadow of his mother? And I think he gave the greatest answer. He said, I didn't grow up in the shadow of my mother. I chose to grow up in her light. And so for me,
Beautiful.
are we in the shadow of 1972, the shadow of all these years that we've been here? And for it feels to me like coming out of this General Conference, we've been in the shadows for so long, but now it's like we're going into the light, and prayerfully we're going to lead other people to Christ as we go through that light. This light is gonna radiate in a new and a different way, and we get to be ambassadors of that in the world. And so it's like, hey, as Dak would say, here we go.
Yeah, and I think, I said this before, I'm so thankful to all the people that are part of the United Methodist Church in our conference and in the Unified Conference. And you chose to be United Methodist, and I'd want to thank you for doing that. And you get to be a United Methodist moving forward. And you get to do that in a context with a whole bunch of other United Methodist churches, and you get to do it in the context that you know best. And so I celebrate that, and I celebrate the good work that our great lay people and clergy do in the Central Texas, North Texas, Northwest Texas conferences. Keep doing what you do. It is no accident that we have a vision statement that we were going to live into regardless of what happened at General Conference. We're followers of Jesus, seeking the loving, just, and free world God imagines for all people. To that end, we've got these missional priorities that we're all going to live into. That hasn't changed. We're still going to do that, and you get to go and do that in the light and freedom of what's happened here at General Conference. So,
and I got to tell you too, boy, I think if Bishop Sines was sitting right here, I think he would say, boy, we have a great opportunity. And General Conference not really becomes a springboard for us to live into this new mission statement and these new strategic priorities. But what's neat is, this is what he was telling us 10 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
And now to see it begin to become a reality, I think it's just an affirmation of who he is as our Episcopal leader.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
Well, Edlen, Philip, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for enduring the cold, and thank you so much for all that you've done over these last couple of weeks, and
Yes,
that you will continue.
Now I'm going to head out into the light my own self.
into the sunlight to warm up a little bit. Y'all are a blessing and a mess, and it's wonderful. And thank y'all for being with us on Pod Strangely Warmed. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins from Charlotte. This has been Pod Strangely Warmed. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more. To help me provide a recap for our annual conferences are Philip Rhodes and Edlen
Johnson.
Sorry. He said Johnson. Oh, Lordy, that's it. Johnson. Player to be named later.
Only because I used to have a TV show on cable access, and I would just do multiple takes. That's why I respect Bishop Science's teleprompter game is strong.
It is. His teleprompter game is strong. Johnson.
Still in general conference in Charlotte.